Hello everybody and welcome to today's presentation on the GeoAwareApplication dashboard. The purpose of this demonstration is to show the new functionality for the business user. Now what we'll do to start is I want to show you a couple of the settings that need to take place before you can start. So by going to Administration, and if you go to Users and Security, you'll see in there's an option to do Manage Groups. So the first group you want to create, and I've already created one here, is the User Experience Business Group. So I use User EXP Business, and you can use that or another one if you choose. Now the important part about creating this group is that we want to limit the roles that belong to this group. So if I go Edit Roles here, you'll see I only picked 3 roles. I picked the console user, the dashboard user, and there's a new role in here called User Experience Business that gets loaded when you load the current build of the GeoAwareApplication cartridge. Once you create that group, what you'll need to do is go create a user that strictly uses that group. So what I did is I created one here called the business user, and we'll log in as the business user once the configuration is complete. And this business user is able to leverage certain pieces of the GeoAwareApplication dashboard, but we really limit what they can do so they don't get into all the nuts and bolts of Foglight that a typical Foglight user would. We just limit them to the business view functionality. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is we want to make sure you're on the right cartridge version. So if you go to the cartridge inventory, we're going to go to this cartridge inventory and you're going to look for the Geo cartridge. Now there's been a couple versions of the 554, or a couple builds I should say, of the 554 cartridge. So the most recent one that's available on IQ today, or on the wiki rather, is version 554 build 185. So make sure that build is installed in order to get the functionality that I'm going to show you next for the business user. Now what we're going to do is we're going to presuppose a lot of the building has already been done on the transactions and the request groups and the locations that come up from the appliances. So I'm going to log in as this business user that we just created. Now when you first log in as this business user, they have the Getting Started dashboard. So what we want to do is we want to create a dashboard right away for them and make that custom dashboard their home page. So as this business user, you will have the capability to create your own drag and drop dashboards. And typically what we're going to do is have the Foglight administrator go in and create the first one for them, but then let them modify the dashboard. So I'm going to choose Create Dashboard, and I'm just going to call this, I'm going to do a dashboard on Ecom, but you can do it on whatever application you want, or you can just set this as, you know, My Applications or My Analytics or whatever the name of the dashboard you want is. Okay, now what we've really done over here is we tried to limit as much as possible. Now ideally this user would just be able to see my dashboards and they wouldn't be able to see any of these other pieces, the end user or the configuration. We just want them to eventually have the privileges to see my dashboards. And on the other side, all we want them to do is have a very limited set of selectable data. So right now what we've limited this is to My Analytics, My Applications, Locations, and My Transactions. So what we'll do is we'll start with My Applications, and we're doing the Ecom application, I'm going to start with that one. So I can drag Ecom 1 onto the backplane, and I could either select the metrics or select the view. In most cases I'm going to select the view to start with, and you can see that as the User Experience Business role, there's only a limited set of views that are available. So it's always going to pick the default view that we want them to use. So I'm going to show you some exceptions to that in a little while. I'll click Finish here, and this is the default representation for any of my applications. Now the next thing I can do is I can go to my transactions, and these are the transactions that I have available. And same workflow, I take and I drag the Ecom funnel over, land that, and this is the default view that's used for the business user. So it gives us some high-level visibility into the different pieces of the transaction. Now the next thing we can do is, if you want to, you can drag another transaction on, and I can create another view just like that for customer registrations. But what I want to do is I want to use this same bucket. So instead of dragging it separately and creating a new wrapper for a conversion summary, I want to use this one. So I'll drag it on top and I'll land it there, and you'll see it adds another row to the table. So I can go ahead and add all the different transactions I want onto there. I'll add MasterCard purchases on there as well. And then this gives you a vision or a view into the last 4 hours for these transactions as they came in. So over the last 4 hours, 600 transactions were started for the e-com funnel, 115 were completed. It's an upward trend over the last 4-hour period, and then you can see the trend here. So the period mean, so 21% is the period mean for e-com funnel conversions, which is basically doing the math on this 115 divided by 600. Okay, so the next thing we do is we can go and we can look at my locations, and these are typically the things that these types of users, the analytic users, would be interested in. So if I look at Aliso Viejo, California, and I select the view, that's also going to bring me to my default view. And this error log isn't going to be here, but we'll live with that for now. And then I can drag another one on top, and I can list those just like I do these transactions. Now what's going to happen is once I get those on there, there's also some workflows enabled, which I'll show you shortly. Now so now I have applications, locations, and transactions. I want to show you a couple of the more free-form ones. So if I go to My Analytics and I just drag things from My Analytics onto this backplane, I can go ahead and look at those. So a lot of times business people want to look at 404 codes. So you can drag the 404 codes, and again we'll select a view, and you can see the 404 codes are on there. So I can watch the two big ones that business users watch is their 404s, which are their page not founds, and also their 500s. So we can drag both of those on there and look at those globally. Now one thing you might want to do also is you might want to look at some of the different analytics that are available under your transactions. So if we go to the e-com funnel and we look at the different locations, and under locations there's going to be these performance indicators. These performance indicators are basically metrics associated with the transaction. So I have lost sale. What I'm going to do here is instead of using the view, I want to tell it what view to use. I want to basically dictate what it's going to look like. So I'm going to select metrics on this one. Now the metrics, I can pick any of these charts I want to, just like in a regular custom dashboard, and I can go ahead and drag and drop, or actually just leave that on there. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking at my lost sale amount, and then what I might want to do is I might want to compare that to my order value. So basically the sale amount, the amount of people who bought things versus the amount of people who just shopped and left. And of course here we can edit the properties and make this a view that represents two metrics. So this way I can see basically the difference between how many people, the amount they had in, and the amount of people that left with money in their cart. So basically what we look for here is for big discrepancies over time, and then we can drill on those discrepancies. Okay, so this is a real quick overview of this functionality, and basically what the business user, they end up with a dashboard something like this for their analytics. What we can do from here, of course, in the default dashboards, I'd go to General, and I'd be able to say make this my home page, and from now on when this business user logs in, they have all this functionality. Now real quick, I'm just going to show you a couple of drop downs. There's drop downs, or drill downs rather. There's drill downs available on the countries. There's drill downs available on my different hit filters where this will drill you into replay, and there's also drill downs available on the conversion summary. So the conversion summary will pop up the buy funnel, and it'll let the business user click on exits here and go ahead and flow through just like a user of the Geo dashboard would. This business user can flow through and replay the transactions, which I'm not going to go into today. Okay, so that's a real quick overview of this business user. We don't want them in the GeoAwareApplication dashboard. We don't want to look them at Foglight services. We just want to give them this analytic capability that doesn't drill them into a path where they're going to end up in a technical area. Thank you for attending.